Every morning I wake up at first light, a habit developed over 43 years of working on the railroad. No matter how many times I try to retrain myself after retirement, it's no use. 78 years old and I still jump up at 5 in the morning as if I were waiting for the morning shift. Today, I was lying with my eyes open when the big wall clock in the living room struck 5. The house was filled with its melodic chime, the same one that had been ringing through these rooms for the past 50 years. The clock was Vivian's gift for our first anniversary, one of the few items I still felt some affection for. With a grunt, I rose from the bed. My knee was aching again, the barometer on my bones, as my mother used to say. So it's going to rain by lunchtime. I put on my old raincoat when I went to check the mailbox. Our house, or rather, my house now, has been in the same spot since 1950. I'd bought it for a ridiculous sum by today's standards when Vivian and I were first married. The neighborhood was quiet then, almost rural. A few dozen green houses, no high-rises, and the only commercial establishment was the Stokes family store on the corner, selling everything from fresh milk to nails. Now, of course, things have changed. Huntsville has grown, swallowed up our once isolated neighborhood. Family-owned stores have replaced the chain supermarkets. There's less green lawns, more asphalt. But my land, my 3/4 of an acre with the house in the center, remained unchanged. I washed my face, shaved, pulled on my usual cotton pants and plaid shirt. My breakfast was also unchanged, oatmeal with raisins and a cup of strong black tea. Vivian always grumbled that I drank tea like water without sugar or milk. What was she supposed to say to that? That a real machinist should have a taste of life unadorned? She would have rolled her eyes. Soon it will be 7 years since she's been gone. Cancer took her quickly, too quickly for me to prepare for loneliness. Although, come to think of it, how can you prepare for that? 52 years together and suddenly, nothing. After breakfast, I went out on the veranda with a cup of tea. My house is nothing special, a typical one-story ranch with 3 bedrooms, but the veranda is my pride. It's wide, girdling 2 sides of the house, with comfortable rocking chairs that I made with my own hands. The veranda overlooks the front yard with the sprawling maple tree that Vivian and I planted the year Wesley was born. It's a mighty tree now, its branches giving shade to half the lawn. Wesley. My lips pressed into a thin line at the thought of my son. It's not that we're in a fight. Worse, we're in a state of Cold War, where open confrontation has been replaced by strained politeness and occasional visits of obligation. We used to be close. I used to take him to the depot, show him the locomotives. He would climb into the cab and pretend to drive the train through the mountains and valleys. His eyes would shine with delight when I told him about the long routes I'd taken, the cities I'd seen. He swore he would become a train driver too as soon as he grew up. But he did, and everything changed. College, a business degree, a job in real estate. Real money, Dad, not pennies behind the wheel of a locomotive, he told me once. Maybe that's when the first crack between us fell. I knew the value of my work and was proud of it. For me, railroading was never just a way to make money. It was a way of life, almost a calling. Wesley, on the other hand, always knew the value of everything in dollars, especially land. He quickly realized that real estate was a gold mine in booming Huntsville. He started small, selling condos, then switched to houses, and now he's doing large commercial properties. Judging by his new Lexus and his house in an upscale neighborhood, things were going well. I sipped my cooled tea and looked across the street. Where the Henderson family house used to stand, there was now a squat car wash building. Farther away, a supermarket parking lot stood where 3 houses had been demolished. My lot was increasingly becoming an island of residential development in a sea of commercial properties. Over the past 5 years, I've been approached many times with offers to sell my house. First, they politely asked if I was planning to move. Then they offered me modest sums, then more and more impressive sums. I refused, not out of stubbornness or greed. I just didn't see the point. Where should I, an old man, move to? What to do with the money? All my needs are more than modest. My pension is enough, especially after Vivian's death. And this house is my whole life. Around 10 in the morning, I noticed a familiar car pulling into my driveway. Wesley's silver Lexus. Next to him in the passenger seat was his wife, Faye. Unexpected guests on a weekday, it was alarming. I took my time getting out to meet them. I sat in the rocking chair watching them get out of the car, Wesley in his business suit despite the summer heat. Faye with perfect hair and manicures in a dress that probably cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. "Hey, Dad." Wesley came up on the veranda with a wide smile that didn't affect his eyes. "How are you feeling?" "Fine," I answered without rising. "To what do I owe the visit on a workday?" "Jesus, Dad." Wesley rolled his eyes dramatically. "Do we really need a special reason to visit you?" "Normally, yes." I wasn't going to pretend. Faye smiled nervously, showing off her perfectly straight teeth. "Garland, we're just worried about you. Living here alone, unsupervised." "I'm 78, not 108, I said, "and I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself." Wesley sighed and sat down in the rocking chair next to me. "Dad, Faye and I just want to talk about our options. You know your house needs constant maintenance. The roof leaked last year, the air conditioner's acting up. I talked to Buck Jenkins the other day, and he saw you trying to fix your own gutters. At your age, climbing ladders, Buck Jenkins talks too much," I grumbled, "and I'm doing just fine around the house." Faye crouched on the porch railing, straightening the folds of her dress. "Garland, we'd just like to suggest that you consider options for more comfortable living. There are wonderful senior communities where you'll be taken care of, where there's a doctor on a regular basis, 3 meals a day, entertainment." "Nursing home," I interrupted her. "Call things by their proper names, Faye." "It's not a nursing home," Wesley objected with irritation. "It's a state-of-the-art senior housing complex. Sunny Hills is a beautiful place with a pool, a library, a movie room, and with nurses to make sure I've taken my pills," I added. "That's caring, Dad." Wesley raised his voice. "Something you should have taken a long time ago. Face it, you're getting old. Sooner or later you're going to need help." I looked at my son and saw impatience in his eyes. Not concern, impatience. Like he was performing an unpleasant but necessary duty. "I'll take help when I need it," I said calmly. "For now, I'm doing fine on my own, and I'm not going anywhere." Faye and Wesley exchanged glances. "Dad," Wesley stepped forward, "I just want you to know what your options are. Faye and I work a lot. We don't always get a chance to visit you. If something were to happen, a heart attack, a fall, who would help you?" "I have neighbors," I answered. "Bertha Pringle lives across the street. We look out for each other." "Bertha's 75, Wesley snorted. "What help is she?" "More than you," I said. There was a tense silence in the air. Faye coughed nervously. "Why don't we go inside?" she suggested. "I brought blueberry pie. It's your favorite, Garland. I knew my favorite was apple, but I didn't bother to correct her." I got up silently and headed for the door. My knee ached again, and I wrinkled my nose involuntarily. "See?" Wesley was right behind me. "Even walking is hard for you." "It's arthritis," I cut him off. "It's not going to go away from moving to your sunny hills." The house was cool. The air conditioner was working fine, contrary to what Wesley said. I led them into the kitchen, bright, spacious, with a large table in the middle. The table was designed for the large family we never had. Vivian couldn't have any more children after Wesley, complications from childbirth. Faye pulled a container of pie out of her bag and started fussing at the cupboards, looking for plates. She'd been in my house at least once a month for the 15 years of her and Wesley's marriage, but she still didn't know where everything was, or pretended not to. I silently pulled out 3 dessert plates and set out the utensils. Wesley, meanwhile, was looking around the kitchen with a kind of appraising gaze. "You know, Dad, this kitchen looks really dated. Laminate countertops, old stove. If you decided to sell the house, its value would be greatly reduced by the need for renovation. I'm frozen with the kettle in my hand. What makes you think I'm going to sell the house?" Wesley shrugged his shoulders. "Just speaking hypothetically, if you decided to move to Sunny Hills, you'd have to sell this house to finance it." "I have savings," I said, pouring boiling water into a teapot. "Enough for a year, 2 at the most," Wesley parried. "Sunny Hills isn't cheap." "Then why are you so insistent that I move there?" I set the kettle on the table with more force than I intended. "Because I care about you, Dad," Wesley exclaimed. "Can't you see that? You're becoming a burden to yourself. You can't take good care of the house, you can barely walk." "I can take care of my house just fine." I could feel myself starting to boil. "And I can walk too, thank you for your concern." Faye hurriedly intervened. "Garland, Wesley just wants to say that at your age, living alone in such a big house is getting harder and harder. We're worried." "What happened to the idea of a domestic helper?" I asked. "Last year, when I dislocated my shoulder, you, Wesley, said you'd find someone to come twice a week. Help with the cleaning, the cooking." Wesley grimaced. "I've explored that option, Dad. It's expensive and inefficient. What if you get sick on the days the aide isn't here?" "Then I'll call the emergency services," I replied, like any sane person would. The tea was poured, the cake was cut. We sat around the table like a normal family. From the outside, you'd think it was a normal family dinner, but I could feel the tension hanging in the air. "Dad?" Wesley pushed away the plate with the unfinished piece of pie. "I'm just asking you to think about it. Go to Sunny Hills, take a look, talk to the tenants. I know you're attached to the house, but—" "It's not about attachment," I interrupted. "It's about independence. I've made my own decisions my whole life, and now I'm not going to let anyone, not even you, decide where and how I live." "But, Dad—" "Besides," I continued, "this house is all I have, what I'm leaving you as an inheritance." At those words, something flashed in Wesley's eyes, something like greed, quickly hidden behind a mask of filial concern. "Dad, this isn't about the inheritance," he put his hand on my shoulder. "It's about your well-being." I shook his hand off. "If it's not about inheritance, why don't you support the idea of a domestic helper? I can mortgage the house to pay for the services. After I die, the bank will take it and you'll get nothing." Now, Wesley's eyes were filled with horror. That would be irresponsible, Dad, to mortgage the only property." "For my well-being," I finished for him. "Isn't that what you care about?" Faye tried to lighten the mood again. "We all just want what's best, don't we? Let's not make any rash decisions. Garland, we're just suggesting you explore your options. Perhaps a home health aide is an option worth considering." I saw Wesley cast a disapproving look at his wife. Clearly that option wasn't in his plans. "Well," I said, finishing my tea, "I'll think about what you said. Thank you for your concern." Wesley brightened, clearly taking my words as a surrender. "Great, Dad. I can sign you up for a tour of Sunny Hills as early as next week. There's a great apartment that's just opened up overlooking the park." I gave my son a hard look. I said I'd think about it. I didn't say I'd take it. Wesley's smile faded a little. "Of course, Dad. It's just, the sooner you look at it, the more time you'll have to think about it." After tea, they packed up quickly. The visit, obviously designed to work the old man, had failed, and now they had no reason to linger. As I walked them to their car, I noticed Wesley glancing around my lot, lingering on the corner where it faced the intersection. In that moment, it hit me. It wasn't just about concern for my well-being, and it wasn't just about the inheritance per se. It was about the land. This particular land, which was becoming more valuable every year as the area became more commercialized. "Wesley," I called to my son as he opened the car door, "tell me, what's being built on the site of the old Martinson house?" He froze for a second, then shrugged. "I think a shopping center. Or an office building. Why?" "Nothing," I smiled. "It's just interesting how the neighborhood is changing." When the silver Lexus disappeared around the corner, I walked slowly back to the veranda. I sank heavily into the rocking chair and looked thoughtfully at my maple tree. How many years had Vivian and I watched it grow? 50? More than that. Now I understood why Wesley had been so insistent on Sunny Hills. And it had nothing to do with taking care of his old dad, but it had everything to do with the fact that the neighborhood was changing, being developed with commercial properties, and my lot, a large corner lot facing the intersection, was becoming a prime piece of land for developers. I rocked in my rocking chair, looking at the maple trees, the lawn, the house that had witnessed my entire life, and for the first time I seriously wondered if I should really sell it. Not for Sunny Hills, and certainly not for Wesley and his plans, but for me, to show my son that I was still in control of my life and my inheritance. That night, I dreamt of Vivian. She was standing at our bedroom window like she did in the mornings, in her favorite pale blue robe, cup of coffee in hand, looking out at the maple trees in the yard. I called out to her, and she turned around and smiled that special smile that was meant just for me. "Garland," she said, "don't let them take our house." I woke up at first light, feeling a strange heaviness in my chest. The dream was so real that for a moment I thought I could still smell the aroma of her coffee. After Wesley and Faye's visit last night, I'd been uneasy, like there was a threat hanging over the house, as if Vivian and I were about to be ravaged. As I ate my breakfast, I thought about the events of the last few years. When exactly had Wesley turned from a caring son to a man who looked at me as an obstacle? When had this gulf between us begun? Maybe it started when he was a teenager. Wesley was a capable boy, but impatient. He always wanted more, quicker, faster. I remember him snorting contemptuously when I told him about my promotion at the railroad. "What, are you going to make $10 a week more now?" he asked. He was 16 at the time. "A terrific accomplishment after 20 years of work, Dad." Vivian and I tried to give our son everything we could afford, but it was never enough for Wesley. He looked at our neighbors who had more expensive cars, bigger houses, more frequent vacations. He studied business and finance in college, and after graduation, he immediately took a job at a real estate agency. Not the most prestigious at first, but he progressed quickly, jumping from place to place in search of higher commissions. When he introduced me to Faye, I knew right away that this girl was just like him. Beautiful, driven, with impeccable taste in clothes and uncompromising views on living well. She worked in marketing, and their combined incomes allowed them to maintain the standard of living to which they both aspired. A house in an upscale neighborhood, vacations twice a year, membership in a country club. Unlike Vivian, Faye never felt comfortable in our modest home. She was always polite, but behind that politeness I sensed condescension, as if our life wasn't good enough, not successful enough. After our son was born, Wesley became even more obsessed with success and money. He attributed it to his desire to provide for his family, to give his son the best. But I saw something else in it, an almost pathological need to prove to everyone, and first of all to himself, that he had achieved more than his railroader father. Relations between us became increasingly strained. Vivian and I invited them over for Sunday lunches, but Wesley declined more and more often, citing his busy schedule. When they did come, the conversation invariably centered on his work, his deals, his successes. He never asked about our lives, and if I started to talk about work or neighbors, he barely concealed his boredom. After Vivian's death, the gulf between us grew even deeper. In those first months of bereavement, Wesley called rarely and visited only a couple of times, for the funeral and on the 9th day. Then his visits became infrequent on major holidays. He always brought expensive but impersonal gifts, cognac I didn't drink, sweaters from brands I'd never heard of. I set the spoon aside and looked out the window at my garden. Wesley hadn't come yesterday for me. He was coming for the house, for the land, and that thought caused a pain I hadn't expected to feel. It seemed that over the years I should have gotten used to his indifference, but no, it still hurt. After breakfast, I decided to take a walk to the mailbox. The morning was cool and my joints ached less than usual. Mrs. Pringle was already in her garden pruning the roses. "Good morning, Garland," she called out to me. "How are you today?" "I'm very well, Bertha, and how are you?" "I can't complain," she said, straightening up with a hand on her lower back. "I saw Wesley come by yesterday. He's a rare visitor to our neighborhood." Bertha Pringle, in spite of her 75 years, was a tireless gardener and an even more tireless observer of our street life. She knew everything about everyone and, amazingly, almost never judged, just gathering information. "Yeah, I stopped by with Faye." I nodded. "Tried to talk me into moving into a nursing home." Bertha frowned. "And did they agree?" "Of course not," I grinned. "I'm not ready for a nursing home yet." "That's right." Bertha nodded firmly. "You know, Garland, a lot of people are interested in your house. Last week a man in a suit asked me about you, how long you'd been living here, how well you were doing. I got suspicious." "And what did you tell him?" "I told him it was none of his business," Bertha smiled, showing her strong teeth. "But he was persistent. Left a business card. Said their company was interested in buying property in our neighborhood." "Can I see the card?" "Sure." Bertha put away the pruning shears and headed toward her house. "I'll get it for you." She returned a minute later with a white card. "Here you go. I wasn't going to call anyway." I took the card. "Huntsville Development Group, Bradley Thornton, Real Estate Acquisition Manager." And a phone number. "Thank you, Bertha." I put the business card in my shirt pocket. "I'll think it over." When I got home, the first thing I did was call my old friend Keith Farrell. Keith and I had known each other for almost 50 years. We'd worked together on the railroad before he went to an administrative position in city planning. He was retired now, but kept his connections and often moonlighted as a consultant. Keith, it's Garland. Am I interrupting?" "Garland, buddy." His voice sounded cheerful. "I always have time for you. What's up? Can we meet? We need to talk." Sure. Come to lunch at the Old Oak 1 o'clock. We'll have a steak, just like old times." The Old Oak was my and Keith's favorite place, an unassuming steakhouse on the edge of town that served great meat and didn't play that modern music that gave me a headache. I arrived at the restaurant a little ahead of schedule. Keith was already waiting for me at our usual table in the corner, sipping a ginger ale. "You don't look so good, old man," he said after shaking hands. "Something wrong?" I told him about Wesley and Faye's visit, about their insistence on sending me to Sunny Hills, about the development company card Bertha had given me. Keith listened attentively, nodding from time to time. When I finished, he rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "You know, Garland, your situation is not unique. Your whole neighborhood has been changing over the last few years. Zoning is being changed from residential to commercial. Your lot is one of the last residential lots on that block. What does that mean?" "It means your land is worth a lot more than you think." Keith sipped from his glass. "Especially considering the location. A corner lot facing an intersection is the perfect place for a small shopping center or office building." I felt my stomach clench. "Do you think Wesley knows about this?" "I'm sure he does," Keith nodded. "He works in real estate. Probably watches zoning changes like a hawk." "Is that why he's so insistent on me moving to Sunny Hills? To get the house and sell the land?" Keith shrugged. "I can't speak for your son, Garland, but the facts are these. Your lot has serious commercial value. If you decided to sell it now, you could get several times its value as a residential property. The waiter brought us menus, but I could hardly concentrate on choosing dishes. Anxious thoughts swirled around in my head. What am I supposed to do, Keith? For starters, don't make any rash decisions. He put the menu aside. And maybe you should find out how serious the Huntsville Development Group's intentions are. I can make some inquiries. I'd appreciate it. I nodded. We ordered steaks and fries. The conversation turned to more neutral topics: health, mutual acquaintances, city news. But my thoughts were far away. As we were finishing our coffee, Keith suddenly said, "You know, Garland, your house isn't just walls and a roof. It's a part of your life, your memories. No one has the right to take that away from you against your will, not even your son." "Thanks, old man." I felt a lump in my throat. "But," Keith continued, "if you decide to sell, do it with your eyes open. Know the real value of your land. And don't let anyone, not the developers or your own son, underpay you." On the drive home, I reflected on Keith's words. The thought of selling the house still seemed sacrilegious to me. But if Wesley was really after my land for his own gain, using a pretense of concern for my well-being, it was a thought that brought on a deafening rage. At home, I was in for a surprise. The new message indicator on my answering machine was blinking. I hit the play button. "Hey, Dad, it's Wesley." My son's voice sounded suspiciously chipper. "Just wanted to let you know I signed you up for a field trip to Sunny Hills for next Wednesday at 10 in the morning. I'll pick you up. Don't make any plans, okay? This doesn't commit you to anything, just to see it. Bye." I deleted the message, feeling the irritation rising in me. Typical of Wesley to act without asking my opinion, deciding for me. I spent the rest of the evening leafing through old photo albums. Here's Vivian and me on our wedding day. Here's the three of us, with little Wesley in our arms at this very house we'd just bought. Here's Wesley on his 10th birthday. I gave him a model locomotive I built myself. I remember how his eyes lit up when he unwrapped the gift. What happened to that boy? When did he turn into a man for whom value is measured only in dollars? The next few days passed in anxious anticipation. I felt like a soldier on the front lines waiting for an attack but not knowing where it would come from. On Monday, Keith called. "Garland, checked out Huntsville Development Group. They're a serious company, mostly building mid-sized shopping centers. They've already got 3 sites in Huntsville. And they're interested in my lot? Not just yours," Keith replied. "They've been buying up land in your neighborhood for years. From what I understand, they're planning to build a large shopping center with office space, and your corner lot is an important element in their plans. How much do you think my land could be worth?" Keith quoted an amount that took my breath away. It was 5 times what I thought it would be. "Are you sure?" I asked. "More than sure. And that's still a conservative estimate. If bidding starts between competing developers, the price could go even higher." After my conversation with Keith, I sat on the veranda for a long time, looking at my maple tree. The thought that this tree would one day be gone, replaced by a parking lot or a store, was painful. But even more painful was the thought of my own son seeing me as an obstacle to wealth. On Tuesday, I decided to put my theory to the test. Wesley was scheduled to stop by to discuss the details of tomorrow's trip to Sunny Hills. I had planned to cancel the tour, but decided to do it in person rather than over the phone. He arrived around 6 p.m. without Faye. He looked tired after a day at work, but excited. "Hey, Dad." He hugged me with one arm, holding my briefcase with the other. "How are you doing?" "Fine," I replied, letting him into the house. "Tea? Better coffee if you have any." I put the kettle on and took out a jar of instant coffee. Wesley, meanwhile, was at the kitchen table, putting some papers out of his briefcase. "I brought you the Sunny Hills brochure," he said, sliding the glossy booklet toward me. "Look at the amenities: pool, spa, movie room. It's not a nursing home, Dad, it's a real resort." I silently put a cup of coffee in front of him and sat down across from him. Wesley, I'm not going on the tour tomorrow. He froze with the cup to his mouth. What? Why not? Dad, I organized the whole thing. Without my consent, I reminded him. I don't want to move to Sunny Hills or any other place like that. I'm staying in my house. Wesley set the cup on the table with more force than necessary. Dad, you haven't even seen Sunny Hills. How can you refuse without knowing what you're losing? I know what I'm gaining by staying here, I replied calmly. Independence, freedom, memories. Memories? Wesley shook his hands. Dad, memories aren't tied to the house. They're in your head. You can take them with you anywhere. Can you take the money you get when you sell my house after I die? I asked, looking him straight in the eye. Wesley flinched as if from a blow. What are you talking about? The truth. I sipped my tea. I know my lot is commercially valuable. I know the neighborhood is being rezoned for commercial development. And I know you've already made plans for that land. That's bullshit, Wesley paled. I just want you to live in comfort and safety. At that moment, his cell phone rang. Wesley flinched and quickly looked at the screen. I need to take this, he muttered. It's important. I'm sorry. He got up from the table and walked out into the hallway covering the kitchen door. But not completely. His voice came through clearly enough. Yes, Thornton, I'm listening. No, we're not backing off the plan. Yes, I'm aware of the timeline. The site will be available within 6 months, a year at the most. No problems with the owner. I'll take care of everything. Yes, this is the last piece of the mosaic you need. I froze, afraid to move and make my presence known. Thornton was the name on the business card Berta gave me. My son did business with Huntsville Development Group behind my back. I understand the importance of the corner. Yes, the intersection is a key element. Look, I guarantee you the land will be yours within the time frame specified. We can discuss the details in person. Wesley spoke more softly, and I couldn't make out all the words, but what I heard was enough. My son was planning to sell my land that still belonged to me, on which my house still stood. And from the looks of it, Sunny Hills was just a way to get rid of me. When Wesley came back into the kitchen, I was already sitting at the table again, pretending I hadn't heard. Sorry, Dad. Work call. He looked a little nervous. So, what were we talking about? About me not going to Sunny Hills tomorrow, I reminded him. Dad, Wesley sat down across from me. Please just look. You're not losing anything. Except time, I pointed out. For my sake, he shifted to a pleading tone. Faye and I are so worried about you. This house, it needs so much care, and it's going to get harder for you every year. I looked at my son and I saw a stranger, a man willing to use supposed care as a tool to achieve his goals. It was painful, but with the pain came determination. Okay, I said, suddenly to myself. I'll go see Sunny Hills. Wesley brightened up. That's great, Dad. You'll see. You'll love it. But, I added, I'm not promising anything, and I want you to respect whatever decision I make. Sure, Dad, he nodded vigorously. No pressure? You'll decide for yourself what's best for you. No, I thought. I'll decide what's best for both of us, and you, son, might be unpleasantly surprised. After Wesley left, I sat on the veranda for a long time, thinking. A plan began to form in my mind, a plan that could teach my son a lesson and at the same time provide me with a peaceful old age on my terms. The next morning, I called Keith. Keith, I need the name of a good realtor, someone who is good at commercial real estate and not associated with real estate development companies. You're going to sell the house? I could hear the surprise in Keith's voice. Maybe, I answered, but I want to do it on my own terms, and I want to know all the options. There's a man named Dexter Moon. He's an independent agent, works mostly with private clients, honest as can be in their business. Give me his number. I wrote down Dexter Moon's contacts and thanked Keith, then dialed the number. Mr. Moon, my name is Garland Pitt. Keith Farrell recommended you to me. I'd like to discuss the possible sale of my house. Sunny Hills was exactly as I'd expected. Sterile, impersonal, and depressingly cheerful. Everything about the place screamed money, from the marble floor in the lobby to the crystal chandeliers in the common living room, and that the inhabitants of this place were living out their days in a golden cage, separated from the real world. The receptionist, a lusciously smiling middle-aged woman named Judy, gave us a tour with the enthusiasm of a professional salesperson. And this is our library. She opened the doors to a spacious room with bookcases, more than 5,000 volumes, and we update the collection regularly. I looked at the spines of the books, all new, shiny, untouched. There wasn't a single book that was shabby from frequent reading, not a single bent corner. Wesley walked beside me, commenting enthusiastically every now and then. "See, Dad, what amenities! And here is a heated pool. You can swim even in winter." I nodded silently, noting to myself that I had never once in my life felt the desire to swim in winter. After a tour of the common areas, we were shown a model apartment, a neat studio with a small kitchen and a separate bedroom. "That's the one that's going to be available next month," Judy said, "overlooking the park. Very sought-after location." "Nice," I said neutrally. "Nice?" Wesley looked disappointed at my reserved response. "Dad, it's amazing. State-of-the-art appliances, smart home system, emergency call button." "And how much does it cost?" I asked directly. Judy hesitated a bit. "Well, we have different packages. The basic plan starts at $3,000 a month, including room and board. But with extras like medical care, laundry, activities, it comes out to about $4,500. I whistled. $4,500 a month? That's more than my house was worth when I bought it. "Times change, Dad," Wesley muttered. "Besides, if you sell the house, you can easily pay for living here for many years." Judy tactfully stepped back, giving us a chance to talk privately. "Wesley," I looked my son straight in the eye, "I'm not selling my house to pay for a cage, even if it has a pool. It's not a cage," he raised his voice. "This is modern, safe housing with 24-hour medical care, where I'll slowly wither away, surrounded by similarly withering old men." Wesley snorted irritably. "How is your current lifestyle any better? Sitting on the veranda all day, looking out at the maple trees, talking to Mrs. Pringle across the street. It's fascinating, it's breathtaking." His words hit me harder than I expected. Did my son really think my life was so empty and meaningless? "It's my life, Wesley," I said quietly, "and I have the right to live it as I see fit. Even if it means slowly turning into a wreck?" He crossed his arms over his chest. "Even if it means falling in the bathtub one day, breaking your hip, and lying there for hours until someone finds you?" "That could happen here," I pointed out. "No, there's a panic button. There are staff here to check on the tenants. You'll be safe here." We stood in the middle of the show apartment, glaring at each other. Judy coughed delicately in the hallway, letting us know she was still waiting for us. "We're done," I told her. "Thanks for the tour." On the way home, Wesley was silent, gripping the steering wheel tightly. I could see his cheekbones play, a sure sign of restrained anger. When we pulled up to my house, he slowed abruptly. "Dad, I don't understand. What's wrong with Sunny Hills? Everything is designed for the comfort of the elderly. Everything." "Except freedom," I said. "Except the freedom to live by your own rules." "What freedom are you talking about?" Wesley got out of the car and slammed the door harder than necessary. "Freedom to dig in your garden until you have a heart attack? Freedom to fall down the stairs trying to fix the roof?" I got out of the car, too, and headed toward the house. Wesley followed at my heels. "Don't ignore me, Dad. I'm trying to help you." Not me. I turned around on the doorstep. To myself. I know everything, Wesley. I know about Thornton at Huntsville Development Group. I know you promised him my land. I know you're planning to capitalize on it. Wesley went pale. What the hell are you talking about? I heard you talking, I said calmly. Last time you came here. The site will be available within 6 months, I said. The intersection is key. Remember? Wesley opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, like a fish thrown on the shore. You eavesdropping on my business negotiations? And you were planning to sell land that didn't belong to you, I countered. I was just exploring my options. Wesley raised his voice. In case you agreed to move to Sunny Hills. And that's why you didn't mention it in our conversations? I didn't say, Dad, by the way, if you move, I'll sell your house to developers for a shopping center? We stood on the porch, looking at each other across the chasm of incomprehension. My son, my flesh and blood, saw me as an obstacle to money, and I saw him as a stranger who had lost all the values Vivian and I had tried to instill in him. I wanted to make sure you'd be happy in your new place first. Wesley tried to pull himself together. Your well-being is my top priority. Don't lie to me. I could feel the anger rising in me. Don't lie to me right now. You've never cared about my well-being. You didn't visit me for months after my mom died. You didn't call to see how I was doing. You only thought of me when you needed something. That's not fair. Wesley raised his voice. I have a job, a family, obligations. And I don't? I started to speak up too. Or do you think that the lives of old people have no value? That we're just taking up space, living out our days? I didn't say that, but I thought it. I was about to scream. I see it in your eyes every time you come here. I see you appraising my house, my land, figuring out how much you can make off of it. Wesley's face contorted with anger. Yes, I am. Because someone has to think about the practical side. Someone has to plan for the future. You think it's easy for me to watch my father stubbornly cling to a wreck, giving up comfort and security? Don't you dare call my house a wreck. I took a step toward him, feeling the blood pounding in my temples. I built my life here, raised you here, buried your mother and mourned her here. So? Wesley spread his arms. It's just a house, Dad. The walls, the roof, the tree in the yard. You can start a new life, a life where you won't be a constant burden to those around you. The word burden hung in the air between us, heavy as lead. I felt something break inside, the last thread that connected me to my son. A burden? I asked quietly. That's what you mean, a burden. Wesley seemed to realize only now what he'd said. His face changed from anger to fear. Dad, that's not what I meant. No, that's exactly what I meant. And I opened the door to the house. And you know what? You're right. I'm a liability. To you. So I'm going to relieve you of that burden. Go away. Dad, listen to me. Go away. I've never yelled so loud in my life. Get out of my house. Don't you dare come back. I slammed the door in his face and leaned back against it, breathing hard. Through the door, I heard Wesley say something, either an apology or an excuse. Then footsteps on the veranda, the slam of a car door, the sound of a car pulling away. My legs wouldn't hold me up. I slid down the door to the floor and sat like that for, I don't know how long. Minutes, maybe hours. Wesley's words echoed in my head. A burden. Had I really become a burden to my own son? Or had he lost the ability to see value in anything but money? When I finally got up, it was dusk outside the window. I mechanically made myself some tea, sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the wall. There was an emptiness inside, no anger, no resentment, only endless fatigue. And somewhere in the depths of that weariness, a decision began to form. If Wesley wants my house, my land so desperately, let him learn his lesson. I will sell the house, but not to him, not through him, and not for his benefit. The next morning, I called Dexter Moon, whom I had previously contacted before my trip to Sunny Hills. "Mr. Moon? This is Garland Pitt. We were talking about the possible sale of my house." "Yes, Mr. Pitt, I remember." His voice sounded energetic. "Have you made a decision?" "I have. I want to sell the house and the land, but I have conditions." "I'm listening." "First, it must be done quickly and quietly. No unnecessary publicity. Second, I don't want my son Wesley Pitt to find out about the sale until after the deal is finalized. He works in real estate and might try to interfere." Dexter was quiet for a second. "I understand. Family complications. You could say that." "Not a problem, Mr. Pitt. We can proceed in confidence. When would it be convenient for you to have me come to appraise the property?" "The sooner the better." "Would this afternoon work for you?" "I'll be there at 4 o'clock." Dexter Moon was a short, stocky man of about 45, with attentive eyes and a friendly smile. He arrived right on time, carrying a leather briefcase and a clipboard. "This is a beautiful house, Mr. Pitt," he said, looking around the living room. "How many years have you lived here?" 53 years, I answered. "I bought it when I got married." Dexter nodded understandingly. "It's a long story. I know it wasn't an easy decision to sell." "It wasn't," I agreed, "but sometimes you have to let go of the past to move on." We walked around the house, Dexter taking notes, photographing rooms, asking questions about repairs, heating and air conditioning systems. Then we went out into the backyard. "The lot is impressive," he said, looking at my 3/4 of an acre. "It's rare to find such large lots in this neighborhood." "I know," I nodded. "The neighborhood has changed a lot over the years." Dexter pulled a map out of his briefcase. "If I'm not mistaken, your lot is now in a mixed-use area." He pointed his finger at the map. "That means it can be used for both residential and commercial development. Given the location at the intersection—" "I know the land is of interest to commercial developers," I interrupted him. "My friend Keith Farrell had explained the situation to me." Dexter smiled. "Keith has a point. If you agree to sell the land for commercial use, the price will be considerably higher than if you sell it as a residential property." "How much higher?" Dexter quoted an amount even higher than what Keith had estimated. It took my breath away. "Are you sure?" "More than sure," he nodded. "I've worked with several owners in your neighborhood. Developers are showing a lot of interest in the area, especially Huntsville Development Group. They're planning a large shopping center." "I know," I said grimly. "My son does business with them." Dexter nodded understandingly. "Now I'm beginning to understand the situation. Your son wants you to sell the house through him?" "Not exactly," I sighed. "He wants me to move into a nursing home and leave the land to him, and he's already made arrangements to sell it." "I see," Dexter shook his head. "But you want to get ahead of him?" "I want to teach him a lesson," I said firmly, "and make sure I have a decent old age on my own terms." Dexter smiled. "Well, Mr. Pitt, I think I can help you. I have several clients who would be extremely interested in your lot, including competitors of Huntsville Development Group." "Competitors?" I felt my lips stretch into a smile. "That sounds interesting." "Very interesting," Dexter confirmed. "Summit Properties has been trying to get a foothold in this neighborhood for a long time. They could offer a very competitive price." We went back into the house and sat down at the kitchen table. Dexter pulled some papers out of his briefcase. "I've prepared a preliminary contract for real estate services," he said. "If you agree, I can start work immediately. I'll arrange confidential showings for potential buyers, conduct negotiations." I read the contract carefully. Everything looked fair. A standard commission percentage, clear obligations, no hidden conditions. "How long can the sale take?" I asked. "Under normal circumstances, it could take months," Dexter replied. "But given the interest in commercial real estate in the area and your unique location, I'd say with the right approach, we could find a buyer within weeks, maybe even days. I signed the contract. There was no turning back, so I made my decision. "What do I have to do?" I asked. Dexter put the signed contract in his briefcase. "It's nothing fancy. Just get rid of any unnecessary personal items. Create a sense of space. Although for commercial buyers it's not that important, they're mostly interested in the land." "When are you planning the first showings?" "I would like to organize them as soon as possible, perhaps as early as this week. I have a few clients I would like to tell immediately about your offer." I spent the next few days sorting through my belongings. Over half a century of living in the same house meant a huge amount of accumulated possessions. I set aside the items most precious to me: photographs, letters to Vivian, a few books we loved to reread, a model locomotive I had once shown little Wesley. The rest, the rest was just stuff. Furniture, utensils, tools, all could be replaced or do without. Wesley called several times, but I didn't answer. I wasn't ready to talk. I wasn't sure I could hold back and not give away my plans. 3 days after we met, Dexter called with news. "Mr. Pitt, I have two very interested buyers. They'd like to look at the property tomorrow, if you don't mind." "Who are they?" I asked. "A representative of Summit Properties and an independent investor who often works with retail chains. Both are willing to make serious offers." "No connection to Huntsville Development Group?" "No, they're direct competitors." "Then I'll see you tomorrow." The first to arrive was a representative from Summit Properties, a young woman in a smart suit carrying a clipboard and a laser rangefinder. She took a quick look at the house but spent much more time on the property, measuring distances, photographing various angles, especially from the intersection. "It's a great location, Mr. Pitt," she said. "Our company has been looking at this neighborhood for a long time. We're planning a mixed-use development here. Retail on the first floor, offices above." "And does my lot fit into those plans?" I asked. "Perfectly," she smiled. "The corner location with access to the intersection is a key element for visibility and access." Key element. The same words Wesley had used in his conversation with Thornton. I felt a bitter satisfaction. My son hadn't lied about at least that one. The second was an independent investor, an older man about my age, with a tenacious gaze and determined movements. He introduced himself as Elliot Vance. "Beautiful house, Mr. Pitt," he said, looking around the living room. "Too bad it will have to be torn down." His bluntness was almost refreshing after the cautious phrases of other potential buyers. "You're not the first to think so," I replied. Elliot Vance grinned. "I don't like to beat around the bush. I'm interested in your land. I have clients, a chain of drugstores who would like to open a flagship store here. The location's perfect." After the potential buyers left, Dexter and I sat on the veranda. It was getting dusk, and the cool evening air was a relief after a hot day. "What do you think?" Dexter asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Both of them seem serious, but it's also definitive. When I signed the contract with you, it seemed abstract, and now that these people have been walking around my house planning to tear it down..." Dexter nodded understandingly. "The decision to sell a house you've lived in all your life is one of the most difficult. If you've changed your mind..." "No," I shook my head. "I haven't changed my mind. It just takes time to get used to the idea." "We have plenty of time," Dexter assured me. "No one's rushing you into a decision." The next day, both potential buyers made offers. Both exceeded Dexter's original estimate. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the numbers and trying to grasp their reality. In my 53 years of life, I hadn't made as much as I was being offered now for a piece of land. Money that could have changed Vivian's life and mine if it had come sooner. Money that now, at the end of the road, seemed almost meaningless. Almost. Because there was one thing that money could give me: freedom. Freedom from having to rely on Wesley. Freedom to choose where and how to live my life. and maybe a little justice. I called Dexter tonight. I've chosen Summit Properties, I said. Their offer is a little lower, but they're willing to give me time to find a new place and organize the move. That's a good choice, Dexter agreed. I'll contact them tomorrow to start the paperwork. When I hung up the phone, I felt a strange sense of release and loss. I walked out onto the porch and sat in the rocking chair, staring at my maple tree in the streetlight. For so many years I had watched it grow, the way its leaves changed with the seasons. And now I had sold its death. But along with the bitterness came another feeling: determination. I had done what I thought was right. I took control of my life, not letting my son control my fate. Wesley will know of my decision soon enough, and his reaction will be, interesting. Dexter was a man of his word. The Summit Properties deal moved quickly and smoothly. A week after their offer, we'd already signed a preliminary agreement, and I'd received a deposit, an amount that in itself exceeded my entire retirement savings. We agreed on a 2-month period before the final transfer of ownership, enough time for me to find a new home and organize a move. Dexter had already picked out several apartment options for me in different neighborhoods in Huntsville. Everything was going according to plan, except for one thing. Wesley still didn't know about the sale. Despite my fears, the information hadn't leaked out to the real estate community in town. Dexter had kept his promise of confidentiality, and Summit Properties had been slow to trumpet their acquisition for fear that competitors might try to outbid the deal. I wasn't looking for a meeting with my son, but I wasn't deliberately avoiding it either. I was just living my life, getting ready to move, sorting through the stuff I'd accumulated over 50-plus years. Wesley called several times, but I didn't answer. I wasn't ready to talk. I wasn't sure I could hide my plans. But fate had it differently. One evening when I was in the garage taking apart old tools, a car pulled up in the driveway. I looked out and saw Bertha Pringle getting out of her old Buick. "Garland," she waved at me. "Can I have a minute?" I wiped my hands with a rag and came out to meet her. "Sure, Berta. Is something wrong?" She looked around as if fearing spies and lowered her voice. "Doris Hendricks came to see me this morning. You know, the one who works at the real estate office on Maple Street. I don't remember." I shook my head. "Never mind," Bertha said. "Anyway, she said there's a rumor going around town. You're selling the house to some big real estate developer?" I felt my insides clench, so the word must have gotten out. "Berta, I don't need an explanation, Garland," she held up her hand. "It's your business. It's just that, well, we've been neighbors for years. I thought you could tell me." There was resentment in her voice, and I felt a prick of conscience. Berta was a good friend, a trusted neighbor. "I'm sorry, Berta. I was going to tell you when it was finalized." "So it's true?" Her eyes widened. "You're really selling the house?" I nodded. "Yes. Summit Properties is planning to build a shopping center here." "Oh my God," Berta put her hand to her mouth. "When's that going to happen?" "I have to vacate the house in 2 months." "Where will you move to?" "I haven't decided yet. I'm looking at options." Berta shook her head. "I can't believe it. End of an era. You know, Garland, I've gotten offers to sell too, but I've never seriously considered them. This house is all I have left of George." "I understand," I said quietly. "But sometimes you have to move on." We talked some more, about the past, about the neighborhood, about how things change. As Bertha was leaving, she turned around. "By the way, Garland, I saw your son today. He stopped by when you weren't home." "Wesley?" I was alert. "Did you talk to him?" "No." Bertha shook her head. "I just saw him drive up, knock on your door, then leave." He looked annoyed. "Thanks for telling me. I knew it was only a matter of time now." If Bertha knew about the sale, Wesley would know soon enough. Huntsville wasn't that big, and the real estate community was even smaller. I wasn't wrong. The next morning, as I was eating breakfast on the porch, enjoying the cool of the early hour, a silver Lexus pulled into the driveway. Wesley jumped out of the car, slamming the door so hard that my tea shook in my cup. "Dad!" He ran up the porch steps. "What the hell is going on?" I took a sip of my tea, trying to remain calm. "Good morning, Wesley. Won't you sit down? Tea? To hell with tea." He loomed over me, fists clenched. "Is it true? You're selling the Summit Proper house?" "Yes." I looked him straight in the eye. "It's true." Wesley looked like I'd punched him. He took a step back, his face contorted with shock and anger. "How could you? Without consulting me? Without warning me?" "Why should I have consulted you?" I asked calmly. "This is my house, my decision." "I am your son," he exclaimed, "the sole heir. I have a right to know." "The right to what, Wesley?" "My property, my life." He started pacing the veranda, running his hands through his hair. "You don't realize what you've done. Summit Properties. They're competitors of Huntsville Development Group. You've ruined everything." "Ruined what, Wesley?" I put the cup on the table next to the chair. "Your plans for my land?" He turned around. "How did you—" "I know everything," I interrupted him. "I know about your deal with Thornton. I know that you promised him my land expecting to inherit it." Wesley turned pale. Then his face reddened with anger. "You've been spying on me? Spying on me?" "No," I shook my head. "You gave it all away. Your conversation with Thornton at my house, your insistence on Sunny Hills, your total indifference to my wishes." Wesley sank into a nearby chair as if his legs would no longer hold him. "You don't understand." His voice sounded almost pleading. "This was the deal of the century for me, an anchor project that could have secured me a partnership in the firm. And for that you had to send me to a nursing home?" "Sunny Hills is not a nursing home," he exclaimed. "It's a first-class facility for the elderly. You'd be fine there." "But you didn't ask me to move there out of concern," I said quietly. "It was to get my land." Wesley opened his mouth to object, but then closed it. He sat silent for a moment, then spoke quietly, with effort. "Yes, I wanted the land, but that's not the only reason I offered to move you. I was really worried about you, Dad." "So worried that you called me a burden?" I couldn't hide the bitterness in my voice. Wesley flinched. "That's not what I meant." I was angry. I said it without thinking. "No, Wesley." I shook my head. "That's exactly what you meant. I've become a burden to you, an obstacle to your money." We sat in silence, staring at the maple trees in the yard. The morning sun was shining through its leaves, creating bizarre patterns of light and shadow on the lawn. How many times had Vivian and I watched this dance of light? How many summer mornings have we spent on this veranda, enjoying the peace and quiet? "Dad," Wesley broke the silence, "you can't sell the Summit Proper house. They're a competitor of Huntsville Development Group. If they get that lot, Thornton's project will fall through." "So? So I've already signed the preliminary agreement," Wesley exclaimed. "I've committed to selling the land to the Huntsville Development Group after—" He hesitated. "After my death?" I finished for him. Wesley looked away. "After I own the land," he clarified. "I got an advance, Dad. A big advance. I took out a loan against it to expand my business." "So you weren't just planning to sell my land, you'd already gotten the money for it?" I could feel the anger rising inside of me. Land you didn't own and might not get for years to come. It was a sure investment. Wesley defended himself. The zoning changes, the value of the property increasing every year. Thornton offered me a partnership in the project, a share in future profits. "And for that you were willing to send me to live out my life in a golden cage?" Wesley jumped out of his chair. "What would have happened to you in Sunny Hills? You'd be taken care of. You'd have 24/7 access to medical care, a swimming pool, a movie theater. Instead, You're sitting here alone in an old house that's falling apart. My house is not falling apart, I said calmly, and I'm not alone. I have neighbors, friends. I decide when to get up, what to eat, where to go. I'm free, Wesley, and I intend to be free for the rest of my life. At the cost of my ruin? There was desperation in his voice. You trapped yourself in that trap, I replied, making plans for something that doesn't belong to you. Wesley sank down on the porch railing, wrapping his arms around his head. You don't understand. If I don't secure this deal, Thornton will demand the advance back with interest. I'll lose my house, my car, my office, everything I own. And that's my fault? I asked. That you mortgaged your future, counting on my death? I didn't count on your death, he exclaimed. I had counted on you moving to Sunny Hills. You would live there in comfort, in safety. And I'd get a house that was bound to come to me sooner or later anyway. But not on your terms, I said firmly. Not on your schedule. Wesley took a deep breath, trying to pull himself together. When he spoke again, his voice sounded calmer, more calculating. Dad, let's look at this rationally. Summit Properties has offered you good money. I'll grant you that. But I can arrange for Huntsville Development Group to offer you more. A lot more. It's not about the money, Wesley. Then what is it about? He looked at me with confused eyes. Revenge. You want to punish me for trying to take care of your future. You were trying to take care of your future, I corrected him, using me as a tool, as a bargaining chip. That's not true. He slammed his fist on the railing. I've always wanted the best for you. The best by your standards, I said. Not by my standards. You never asked me what I wanted. You just decided for me. Wesley lowered his head. Dad, I'm begging you, don't do this. Don't sell the Summit Proper house. Let's find another solution. Any other solution. Like what? I asked. Like I move to Sunny Hills and you sell the land to Thornton and everybody's happy? Yes. He looked at me hopefully. That's right. You get a comfortable life. I get the opportunity to develop my business. Thornton gets the land for his project. Everybody wins. Except me, I said quietly. Because I don't want to live in Sunny Hills. I don't want my life timetabled, controlled by the staff, squeezed into the confines of an institution. But you haven't even tried it, Wesley exclaimed. You said no right away, without even giving it a chance. Because I know myself, I replied. I know what makes me happy. And it's not heated pools or movie theaters. It's freedom. The ability to live by my own rules. Wesley looked at me with desperation in his eyes. Dad, please, think again. If you sell the Summit Proper house, you won't just disinherit me, you'll ruin me. You'll destroy everything I've built over the years. I'm not disinheriting you, I said. The money from the sale of the house will still go to you when I die, just not in the form you were hoping for. I don't want the money, Wesley exclaimed in despair. I want this particular land, for this particular project, which you planned behind my back, I reminded him, using me as a pawn in your game. Wesley knelt down in front of my chair. His eyes glistened with tears, real or artfully portrayed, I couldn't tell for sure. Dad, his voice trembled, I admit I was wrong. I should have been honest with you. I should have told you about the project, the opportunities. I should have offered you a share, a partnership, but I can still fix it. We can rewrite the agreement, make you a full partner. You don't have to move to Sunny Hills. You can live anywhere you want. Just please don't sell the Summit Properties house. I looked at my son, a successful businessman kneeling before me, and felt a strange mixture of bitterness and pity. What had made him like that? At what point did money and success become more important to him than anything else? Could it be my fault? Something I did or didn't do in his upbringing? Stand up, Wesley, I said quietly. Don't grovel. He stood up, wiping his eyes. So you refuse? You won't even consider my offer? I've already signed the preliminary agreement with Summit Properties, I said. Got the deposit. It's done. Wesley's face contorted with anger. You're doing this out of spite, to get back at me. No, I shook my head. I'm doing this for me. To live the rest of my life on my own terms without depending on your favor or disfavor. You don't understand anything, he shouted. This project is my future, my career, everything I've been working towards for years. What you don't understand, I replied calmly, is that you can't build your future on someone else's land, literally and figuratively. Wesley looked as if he wanted to say something, but changed his mind. He stood there, breathing heavily, clenching and unclenching his fists. So that's it? He finally said. You're willing to destroy my career, my future, over some petty grudge? Not a grudge, I said. It was principle. You tried to manipulate me, make decisions for me. I just gave myself my choice back. Thornton will destroy me. Wesley sounded desperate. He's not the kind of man who forgives failure. That's your problem, I replied. You created this situation, so you have to deal with it. Wesley looked at me with disbelief in his eyes, as if he were seeing me for the first time. Then his gaze hardened. You're going to regret this, he said quietly. When you're alone, when you need help, don't expect it from me. I wasn't expecting it, I answered. Not for a long time. He turned sharply and headed for the car. Halfway there, he stopped and turned around. You know what the funny thing is? I really wanted the best for you, even if it was in my own way. Maybe, I nodded, but you never asked me what I wanted. Wesley stared at me for a moment, then got in his car and drove away, leaving a cloud of dust behind him. I stayed sitting on the porch, looking out at the maple trees, at the lawn, at the house that would soon no longer be mine. There was an emptiness inside, not triumph, not the satisfaction of revenge, just emptiness. And somewhere deep inside was the bitterness of realizing that there was now a gulf between my son and me that might never be bridged. But there was another emotion, quiet but persistent, a sense of freedom, a sense that I had regained control of my life, that the future, no matter how briefly I was given it, was mine and mine alone. Dexter called that evening. Mr. Pitt, I have news. Summit Properties is expediting the process. They're ready to close the deal within the month if you agree. What's the rush? I asked. Frankly, they're afraid of the competition, Dexter replied. They've heard rumors that Huntsville Development Group might do something to derail the deal. Wesley doesn't waste any time, I muttered. Excuse me? Nothing, I said. A month is too short. I need time to find a new place to live, to organize the move. We agreed on 2 months. Summit Properties is willing to help with finding a place and organizing the move, Dexter said. They're even offering to increase the deal by 5% to compensate for the inconvenience. I wondered. 5% of the deal was a lot of money, money that could provide me with even more comfort in my new home. All right, I decided, but I need assurances that I won't end up on the street if things go wrong with finding a new place. Of course, Mr. Pitt, Dexter assured me. We'll include that in the agreement. You won't have to vacate the house until you're ready to move in. After my conversation with Dexter, I sat on the veranda for a long time looking up at the stars. Somewhere among them, I believed, was Vivian's soul watching over me. What would she say about my decision? Would she approve? Or would she think I was being too harsh with our son? Garland, it was as if I could hear her voice, you've always been too soft on the boy. Sometimes love isn't about giving in, it's about being firm. Yes, Vivian had always been harder on Wesley, saw right through him, even when he was a child. Maybe if I'd listened to her more carefully, things would have turned out differently. But regrets are futile. You can't change the past. You can only move forward, accepting the consequences of your decisions. And I was ready to accept them, whatever they were. The signing of the final papers to sell the house took place at the Summit Properties office. A glass high-rise in downtown Huntsville. I'd never been in a place like this before. Marble floors, leather chairs, secretaries with impeccable haircuts and polite smiles. Dexter accompanied me, explaining every clause of the contract, making sure I understood everything. Mr. Pitt, a young woman in a strict suit, a representative of Summit Properties, handed me a pen. Please sign here, and here, and here, please. I signed page after page, feeling a strange mixture of emotions. With each signature, I was moving further away from my past, from the house that had witnessed my entire life. Congratulations, Mr. Pitt, the representative said as the last signature was placed. The transaction is complete. Here's your check. She handed me an envelope. I opened it and stared at the amount, which seemed unreal. More than I'd earned in my entire life. More than I'd ever dreamed of having. Everything okay, Mr. Pitt? Dexter asked, noticing my confusion. Yeah. I folded the check and tucked it into the inside pocket of my jacket. It's so final. But also the beginning of something new, he smiled. Speaking of new things, I found the perfect apartment for you. If you don't mind, we can go see it right now. The apartment was in 5 Points, an older part of Huntsville that had been undergoing a renaissance in recent years. Historic buildings have been restored, cafes and small stores have opened, attracting both young and older people who appreciate the quiet atmosphere and architectural beauty. It's a former warehouse converted into an apartment complex, Dexter explained as we rode the elevator up. They kept the original brick walls and wooden beams, but all the utilities are modern. The apartment was a spacious studio with high ceilings and large windows. Brick walls, wooden flooring, open floor plan, all this created a feeling of space and freedom. There's only one bedroom, Dexter said, but it's almost 90 square meters, and the view from the windows. I went to the window. It overlooked a small park with a fountain in the middle. Beyond the park were old buildings with beautiful architecture, and beyond that, the mountains surrounding Huntsville. Beautiful, I admitted. And convenient, Dexter added. In the same building, there's a coffee shop, a laundromat, and a small grocery store on the first floor. There's a library a couple blocks away, a health clinic, several restaurants, all within walking distance. I walked around the apartment, checking out every corner. The kitchen was small but modern. The bathroom was spacious, with a walk-in shower without a threshold, convenient for an elderly person. How much? I asked, walking back into the living room. Dexter said it was less than a quarter of what I'd gotten for my house. Is that within your budget? He asked with a smile, knowing full well the answer. More than that, I nodded. When can I move in? Tomorrow, Dexter said. The apartment's all ready to go. All we need to do is sign the sales contract. Then let's sign it. The next 2 weeks were spent moving. I decided to take a minimum of things with me, only things that were of special value to me. Photographs, some books, a rocking chair I'd made with my own hands, a few paintings that Vivian and I had bought on our travels. Bertha Pringle helped me sort through things. She stopped by almost every day, bringing homemade baked goods, sharing neighborhood news. It's so strange, Garland, she said as she helped me pack my books, being neighbors for so many years, and now— Will you miss me, Bertha? I asked with a smile. Of course, she said, embarrassed. Who else would listen to my stories about my grandchildren? You could come visit me, I suggested. 5 Points isn't that far away. Are you inviting me to visit, Garland Pitt? Bertha smiled slyly. Why not? I felt my cheeks blush slightly. I'll have a beautiful apartment overlooking the park, and I plan to learn to cook something more complicated than scrambled eggs. Then I'll definitely come, Bertha nodded, if only to appreciate your culinary progress. On the day of the move, a truck arrived from a company hired by Summit Properties. 2 sturdy men quickly and carefully loaded my things. I stood on the veranda, taking one last look at the house, the garden, the maple trees. So many memories. Wesley's first steps on this lawn, Vivian and me on the veranda, family dinners in the garden on Sundays. "Ready to go, Mr. Pitt?" one of the movers asked. "Yes," I nodded, turning away from the house. "Ready to go." The new apartment seemed foreign at first, too modern, too open, not mine. But as I arranged my things, hung pictures, laid out books, it began to take on character. My rocking chair fit perfectly in the corner by the window that overlooked the park. For the first few days, I felt a little lost. New neighborhood, new neighbors, new roots. But gradually, I began to settle in. A morning cup of tea in the cafe on the first floor became a pleasant ritual. I got to know the bartender, Louis, a young guy with tattoos but surprisingly polite and attentive. "The usual, Mr. Pitt?" he asked as I entered. "Earl Grey and oatmeal cookies?" Walking in the park, reading on the bench by the fountain, visiting the small library 2 blocks away, my life was taking on a new rhythm, new joys. One morning, about a month after the move, as I was sitting in a cafe, a gray-haired man about my age approached me. "Excuse me," he said. "You worked on the railroad, didn't you? As a machinist?" "Yes." I looked at him in surprise. "Do I know you?" "Not directly," he smiled. "I'm Howard Kimball. I was a dispatcher at the North Depot. I've seen you a few times years ago. And recently I noticed you here in the cafe with a railroad magazine. I actually recently bought a magazine about model railroading at a kiosk nearby, a hobby I've always wanted to pursue but had been putting off." "Have a seat, Mr. Kimball." I pointed to a vacant chair. "Call me Howard." He sat down across from me. "I've noticed your interest in modeling. Are you planning to join the club by any chance?" "Club?" "The Huntsville Model Railroad Club," Howard explained. "We meet twice a week at the community center nearby. We build layouts, swap parts, just socialize. We're short on experienced railroaders." "I've never done any modeling," I admitted. "I've only read about it." "That's not a problem," Howard said with a wave of his hand. "We train everyone. A lot of people start from scratch. Come by Thursday at 7 o'clock at night and see how it works. If you don't like it, that's okay." I've been thinking, why not? What else could I do to fill the free time I had now? "Okay," I nodded. "I'll be there on Thursday." The modeling club was just what I needed. About 20 people, mostly men of my age, fascinated with creating miniature replicas of real railroad systems. In a large room of the community center, there were tables with tools, shelves with parts, and in the center was a huge model, a real small city with mountains, rivers, stations, and, of course, the railroad. "This is our main project," Howard explained, showing the layout, "a recreation of Huntsville and the surrounding area in the 50s, with a historically accurate railroad system." I leaned over, looking at the tiny buildings, the trees, the figures of people. "It's amazing," I said sincerely. "How long did it take to create all this?" "Years," Howard smiled, "and it's going to take years to complete. But that's the point. The process is endless, and there's always something to improve, to add, to change." I started small, helping with painting parts, assembling simple elements. But my knowledge of real railroads, locomotives, and signal systems proved invaluable to the club. Soon I became a consultant on technical issues and then started working on my own small layout, a copy of the section of track where I worked in my youth. The club became my new family. We gathered not only to work on the layout, but also just to socialize, playing cards, watching old movies about trains, sharing life stories. One evening, as I was driving home from a club meeting, I saw a familiar figure at the entrance to my house, Wesley. He was standing leaning against the wall, clearly waiting for me. "Hi, Dad," he said as I approached. "Wesley," I nodded. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to talk." He looked tired, gaunt. "Can I come up to your place?" I hesitated. I hadn't seen him since the day he'd begged me not to sell the house. We hadn't spoken. I knew from Bertha that he'd tried to fight the sale through lawyers, but had been unsuccessful. Okay, I finally decided. Let's go upstairs. Wesley looked around the apartment with obvious surprise. It's not bad, he admitted. It's spacious. And the view. Have a seat, I pointed to the couch. Tea? Coffee? No, thanks. He sat down, rubbing his hands together nervously. I won't be long. I sank into my rocking chair across from him. I'm listening. Wesley took a deep breath. Dad, I wanted to apologize for everything that happened, for trying to manipulate you, for not being honest. I stared at him in silence, waiting for him to continue. The last few months have been difficult, he continued. Thornton canceled the contract, demanded the advance with interest. I had to sell my office, my car. Faye filed for divorce. I'm sorry, I said, and part of it was true. I've been rethinking a lot of things. Wesley looked up at me. Realized how wrong I'd been. Not just with you, with everyone. All my life I'd been chasing money and success, not noticing anything around me. He sounded sincere. I could feel it. But something in his tone, in his gaze, made me wary. And what have you come to? I asked. I've come to the point where I want to make things right. A fresh start, he said, stepping forward. Dad, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking you to give me a chance to be a better son. Why now, Wesley? I looked him right in the eye. Why not a year ago? Not 5 years ago? He looked away. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to see the light, he said quietly. I lost everything. My job, my home, my family. The only thing I had left was you. And I realized how stupid I was to risk our relationship for money. I swayed in my chair, thinking. His words sounded sincere, but there was something else he wasn't telling me. What exactly do you want, Wesley? He was quiet for a moment, then said, I want us to be a family again, so I can visit you, take care of you. He hesitated. I need your help, Dad. I'm on the verge of bankruptcy. The bank's foreclosing on the house. Creditors are after me. If you could lend me some money, just a little bit, so I could get back on my feet. That's it. The real reason for his visit, his remorse. How much? I asked. Wesley named a sum, not a lot compared to what I'd gotten for the house, but a considerable amount. I'll pay it back with interest once I start working again, he added quickly. I have a plan, a new business. This will only be temporary help. I looked at my son. The successful, confident man I knew was gone. Sitting in front of me was a broken man clutching at straws, and that straw was me, the father he'd neglected for so long. No, Wesley, I said after a long pause. What? He looked stunned. I won't give you the money, I repeated calmly. Not because I can't, but because it won't help. Not really. But, Dad, money was never the solution, Wesley, I interrupted him. It's just a reprieve, a Band-Aid on a wound that needs serious treatment. What kind of treatment? There was desperation in his voice. You have to change your attitude toward life, toward people, toward values, I said. Money comes and goes. What's left is relationships, trust, love, all the things you've neglected for years. Wesley sat with his head down. So you won't help me? Not with money, I clarified. But if you really want to change your life, to start anew, I'm ready to support you. Morally, with advice, with my presence. He looked up at me with a look of bitterness. What if I have to declare bankruptcy? If I'm homeless? You're a grown man, Wesley, I said firmly. You made the decisions that brought you here. Now take responsibility for the consequences. Start small, with honest labor. Restore what you've destroyed, not with money, but with actions. Wesley stood up, his face contorted with anger. You're taking revenge on me, he said. Enjoying my downfall after your triumph. No, I shook my head. I just don't want to be part of the same mistake. You were always looking for easy ways, quick fixes, and always at the expense of others. It's time you learn to stand on your own 2 feet. Fine. He headed for the door. I can handle myself. I always have. Wesley, I called out to him, the door stays open, but only for a son who wants a relationship with me, not for a man who only sees me as a source of money. He paused for a moment without turning around, then walked out, slamming the door. I was left sitting in the rocking chair, staring at the closed door. The pain was there. Of course it was there, but not as sharp as before. More like the quiet sadness of realizing that some things couldn't be undone, some bridges burned irrevocably. Life went on. I spent more and more time at the Modelers Club working on my layout, helping others with their projects. I got to know my housemates, a young couple of musicians a floor above, an elderly retired teacher across the street, a cheerful surgeon doctor on the first floor. Bertha Pringle, as promised, came to visit. First, once a month, then more often. We went to small restaurants in the neighborhood, attended concerts in the park, just walked around, talking about everything in the world. One day, when we were returning from a small theater where we watched a production of Our Town, Bertha took my hand, naturally, without words, without awkwardness, and it felt right. About 6 months after selling the house, I decided to drive by my old neighborhood. The house was gone. In its place was an excavation and scaffolding. Summit Properties wasted no time. I parked across the street and sat for a while, watching the construction workers at work. The maple tree was gone too, cut down to make room for the future building. Strangely, I felt no bitterness. Just a slight nostalgia, like flipping through an old photo album. "Garland?" came a voice from beside the car. "Berta. I thought it was you. I saw your car on my way back from the store." She sat down next to me in the passenger seat, putting the grocery bag on her lap. "I thought I'd see what was left of the house," I explained. "How did it feel?" I wondered. I thought it would hurt more. But, it's just a place. The memories stayed with me." Bertha smiled. "That's a wise approach. By the way, I'm selling my house." "You are?" I looked at her in surprise. "To who?" "Summit Properties," she grinned. "They're buying up the whole street. They offered a good price. This house was getting too big for me, and the neighborhood's changing. Soon it'll be all malls." "Where will you move to?" Berta paused for a moment, then said, looking me straight in the eye, "I was thinking about 5 Points. They say it's a nice neighborhood with a park, cafes, comfortable apartments." I felt my lips stretch into a smile. "That's a great choice. I can help you find an apartment. I'm getting a little used to it." "I'd appreciate it," she nodded. "Maybe something in your building, so that it's not too far to go for a cup of tea. Or I could come to your place," I added. We sat in the car, looking at the building site where my house had once stood. Workers were going back and forth. Machinery was humming. The foundations of the future building were growing. "Life doesn't stand still," Berta said, as if she had read my thoughts. "Everything is changing." "For the better," I added, squeezing her hand. I started the car and drove away from the construction site without looking back. There was dinner at a small Italian restaurant, an evening meeting of the modeling club, a new day in my new life ahead of me. A life I had chosen for myself. A life in which I was no one's burden. A life full of new horizons that once seemed unattainable. I once thought that at my age there was no room for change, for new beginnings. But it turns out that 78 is not the end of the road. It's just another station, another turn. And then the journey continues, maybe on a different track, in a different direction. But it continues. And I was ready for this journey.